Mera namaskar. It's very good to see so many of you. So, High Commissioner Subaraiduji, dear friends, I'm really very happy to be here with all of you. And I just want to make sure आप लोग जो आखिर में खड़े हैं, आप ही लोग थे ना बाहर जब मैं आया था, तो कोई बाहर तो नहीं है ना कोई? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So, जैसे मैंने कहा, मैं आप सबको 140 करोड़ देशवासियों की ओर से मैं आपको बधाई दे रहा हूँ। मैं आप सबका आज अभिनंदन कर रहा हूँ और मेरे लिए बहुत खुशी की बात है कि मुझे यहाँ आने का अवसर मिला। अब कुछ लोग जानते होंगे, मुझे पता नहीं कितने लोग जानते होंगे कि ये वैसे मेरा सेकंड विज़िट है। मैं पहली बार जो है मैं 1995 में आया था। एट दैट टाइम आई वाज विथ प्रेसिडेंट शंकर शर्मा। तो जब प्रेसिडेंट शर्मा का विज़िट हुआ था, अलॉन्ग विथ हिम आई केम। सो व्हेन आई केम टुडे फ्रॉम द एयरपोर्ट टू द सिटी, आई सॉ a lot of changes, but perhaps one big change I see is in the Indian community. मुझे नहीं लगता कि उस समय 1995 में इतने लोग थे और ये मेरे लिए खुशी की भी बात है। ऐसे अवसर पर मैं अपनी कम्युनिटी के साथ जो बताना होता है, जो मैं शेयर करना चाहता हूँ, या तो हमारे द्विपक्षीय रिश्तों के बारे में है कि भारत और नामीबिया के बीच में क्या हो रहा है, और ये भी स्वाभाविक है कि आप लोगों को इतनी जिज्ञासा होगी, आप लोगों को आपका मन भी होगा कि भारत में क्या हो रहा है, तो वो भी मैं आपके सामने रखना चाहूँगा। पर सबसे पहले जो है, मैं जो दुर्घटना के बारे में जिसके लिए हम लोग 1 मिनट साइलेंस के लिए खड़े हुए थे, उसके बारे में भी मैं आप कहना चाहूँगा कि पूरे एक तो आप जानते हैं कि हम यहाँ फिजिकली तो यहाँ है, बहुत लोगों का मन जो है वो भारत है। तो ये भी स्वाभाविक है कि हमारी जो आज प्रार्थनाएं जो हैं, जो चिंताएं जो हैं, वो उस सिचुएशन के बारे में होगी। और मैं आपको ये कहूँगा कि दुनिया भर से बहुत लोगों ने और यहाँ के जो विदेश मंत्री जो हैं, उन्होंने भी अपनी सॉलिडारिटी प्रकट की है, अपनी सिंपैथी भेजी है। मुझे भी बहुत फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स और बाकी जो दोस्त जो दुनिया में हैं, उनका भी मैसेज आया है, प्रधानमंत्री जी को भी आया है। और ये एक उदाहरण है कि आज की दुनिया कितनी ग्लोबलाइज्ड हो चुकी है कि और ये भी है कि दुनिया भारत के साथ कितनी जुड़ चुकी है कि हमारे यहाँ ऐसी दुर्घटना हुई और पूरी दुनिया को लगा कि हमें भी इस समय में भारत का साथ देना चाहिए। तो मैं शुरू करता हूँ हमारे रिश्तों के बारे में। और आप जानते होंगे कि 2019 में जब दूसरी बार प्रधानमंत्री मोदी प्रधानमंत्री चुन के आए, तो उनका मीटिंग जो है प्रेसिडेंट हागे गेनगॉब के साथ न्यूयॉर्क में हुआ था, यूएन के साइडलाइंस में हुआ था। मैं भी उनके साथ था उस समय। और फिर 2 साल बाद जो मेरे काउंटर पार्ट जो हैं, डिप्टी प्राइम मिनिस्टर और मिनिस्टर फॉर इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स और कोऑपरेशन, मिनिस्टर नेतुम्बो नंदी इंदाइत्वा, उनके साथ मेरी मुलाकात जो है वो रुवांडा में हुई थी। हम लोग जो हैं कॉमनवेल्थ मीटिंग के लिए आए थे और फिर वो भारत आई थी। उनका रिश्ता है भारत के साथ। वो मुझे बता रही थी कि मेरे ख्याल से उनके हस्बैंड जो हैं वो ट्रेनिंग के लिए भी आए थे एक समय पे भारत। तो यहाँ जो मैं इन मीटिंग के बारे में आपको इसीलिए कह रहा हूँ कि हमारे कॉन्टैक्ट्स तो हैं, पर ये भी दर्शाता है कि भारत के बारे में यहाँ जो नामीबिया की लीडरशिप उनकी जो सोच जो है, उनकी भावनाएं जो हैं, ये इस मीटिंग में वो प्रेसिडेंट गैनगॉब साहब ने भी प्रकट किया था, मेरे काउंटर पार्ट भी उनकी जो अनुभवें जो थी, जो यादें जो थी भारत के बारे में, इट वाज वेरी वेरी वार्म, वेरी वेरी कॉर्डियल। अब इसका कारण है, और कारण है कि भारत जो है, इफ देयर इज़ वन कंट्री जो शुरू से थैंक यू वेरी मच, शुरू से नामीबिया का समर्थन दे रहा है। जब अपार्थाइड के खिलाफ जो दुनिया उसकी आलोचना निंदा कर रही थी, और जो स्ट्रगल जो चल रहा था, भारत एक देश था जो शुरू में 1946 में, माने हमारे स्वतंत्रता के भी पहले यूएन जनरल असेंबली सेशन में हम लोगों ने एक प्रस्ताव रखा कि जो उस समय खतरा था कि साउथ वेस्ट अफ्रीका कहलाया जाता था, कि वो साउथ अफ्रीका के साथ न जुड़े, अपार्थाइड सिस्टम का हिस्सा न बने, और इनकी स्वतंत्रता जो है, हम लोगों ने इसको पूरी सपोर्ट दी बहुत सालों से। और इसका एक ये भी उदाहरण है, आप लोगों ने ब्रिजेश मिश्रा जी का नाम सुना होगा, वो हमारे पहले नेशनल सिक्योरिटी एडवाइज़र थे, और वो 5 साल एक पोस्ट थी यूएन कमिश्नर फॉर नामीबिया, क्योंकि यूएन सिस्टम जो है उनकी एक जिम्मेदारी थी नामीबिया के बारे में। तो उन्होंने इस पोस्ट को 5 साल के लिए संभाला। एक उस समय नामीबिया के जो एंटी कॉलोनियल स्ट्रगल के बारे में एक कॉन्फ्रेंस भी होता था, तो उसके भी वो सेक्रेटरी जनरल थे। और जो स्वापो मूवमेंट जो थे, उस स्वापो मूवमेंट का पहला राजदूतावास 1986 में भारत में खुला था। और उस समय अभी जो राष्ट्रपति जो हैं, जो मुझे बताया गया है कि उनके उपस्थिति में ये राजदूतावास खुला था। और बाद में जब नामीबिया का इंडिपेंडेंस लग रहा था कि इंडिपेंडेंट होने वाले हैं, तो एक यूएन की फोर्स आई, उसको ट्रांजिशन असिस्टेंस ग्रुप कहते हैं, और उसका कमांड भी जो है हमारे एक जनरल दीवान प्रेमचंद उसके कमांडर थे। तो ये मैं आपको इसीलिए कह रहा हूँ कि हमारा जो नामीबिया के साथ जो हमारे रिश्ते जो हैं, ये बहुत पुराने संबंध हैं, और इसकी आज भी जो आपस की जो हमारी दोस्ती जो है, जो भी हमारा कोऑपरेशन जो है, ये भावनाएं, ये इतिहास जो है, हर वक्त हमारे बीच में एक ये बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है। अब मैं कहूँगा कि 1980s 1990 से अगर हम 30 साल आगे बढ़े, इन दोज 30 years actually we have seen very practical manifestations of this relationship, and the key has been how we have tried to contribute to capacity building, to capability, because I was told today when I came here that yesterday there was an Indian delegation which from Karnataka, I think, which had gone to meet the foreign minister, and she, I think, उन्होंने कहा कि मैं आपको एक इक्वेशन देती हूँ, रिसोर्सेस प्लस स्किल्स इक्वल्स प्रॉस्पेरिटी। तो यहाँ रिसोर्सेस तो हैं, बट बिकॉज दे हैव हैड दैट वेरी scarring experience with colonialism, today all the countries of Asia and Africa and Latin America, how we support each other's skill development, how we build up capacities, how we exchange experiences, and how we give each other options. This will, and in the last, at the core of our relationship. And we have a program called ITEC, International Technical and Economic Cooperation. In Asia, Africa, Latin America, this is the oldest such program. जब literally from the time of independence, माने पिछले 75 साल से ये प्रोग्राम चल रहा है, not exactly 75, it started a few years later. But on the basis of that, actually 1,500 citizens of Namibia have gone through training in different fields. that it could be forensics, health, education, in foreign policy, in technology, public administration, defense, even sports and culture. So one part of it is the skill, because if there is something that today our partners in Africa value, including in Namibia, it is that skill which will give them the ability to stand on their own feet, make their own decisions, pursue their own interests. And if we can do that, we have actually, I would say, done the world a great service, but I think we have done our real natural partners. We have provided them, actually, as they say, the ability to fish rather than just get fish. Now, I would like to highlight to you 10 examples today of a difference that our friendship has made in this country. And if you look at these 10 examples, you will then understand today why our relationship is so strong and so close. So my first example is actually the India-Namibia Center of Excellence in Information Technology. I believe it is at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. It has been functioning, I think, for about 2 years now, less than 2 years. And kal jo hai, I will be doing the formal inauguration of this center. The second is the twin faculties of the Mining, Engineering and Information Technology. It is at Namibia's Ongwediva campus in northern Namibia. I'm told it is appropriately called the India Wing, and that too is a contribution when it comes to the mining field. The third is a maternity clinic in a place called Okahau. Again, I think in northern Namibia. The fourth is a plastic technology center at Ondangwa in northern Namibia. The fifth is solar electrification of villages. The sixth is gifting of IT equipment to Namibian Health Ministry. The seventh was particularly important, which was during COVID, Mahamari ke samay mein, we had given vaccines to a number of countries. We gave vaccines we gave to 99 countries and 2 UN forces. So, and many of these countries actually had not got vaccines from anybody else at all. So our vaccines, some we gave directly as Government of India, some we gave through an international program called COVAX. So we gave 30,000 doses of made in India vaccines in March. Is again in the field of health, a different example, very important, and one where we have done this across many countries in the world, which is installing Jaipur foot for people who have lost their limbs. And we have done in the Jaipur foot camp 450 people who have got artificial limbs fitment because of our effort. Then, like any other country, Namibia too has had its moments of challenges, especially weather, climate change issues. You all live here. One of the things I heard when I came in today was that rainfall has been very short for many years. So we've actually provided 1,000 tons of rice first in 2018, then in 2019 as a gesture of friendship. And finally, the 10th example is actually expressed in this room, which is deputing people who are here to work with their Namibian counterparts. So this could be teachers in educational institutions, it could be professors in universities, it could be promoters of school, but it could also be our military officers that we have today, 2 military advisors under the ITEC and 4 personnel from the Air Force who help to maintain the fleet of helicopters that Namibia has got from India. So I give you these examples because as the Indian community, you should know what is the practical difference that India makes. Because, anybody can talk about friendship. All of us have goodwill to all other countries. We express solidarity. We feel for countries when they have problems. But The real difference is when a country decides to look at the requirements or the priorities or the needs of another country and then say, okay, out of those things, some of it I can do. I have people, I have practices, I have experiences, and most of all, I have the heart. And the difference today, when I, as foreign minister, go out in the world, especially in Africa, in Latin America, in other parts of Asia, I cannot tell you how much goodwill we have. And we have this goodwill because of good deeds. We have goodwill because, as you saw during COVID, there were very few countries who stepped forward in the way in which we did. You have goodwill because when you look at these examples I'm giving you, maternity clinic, Jaipur foot, the education, security, these are the basic requirements of any society. And if we become relevant to that, I think that is then their image of India. And that image is well served by. So when the local society looks at you, in many ways, a lot of these activities, of course, shape their image of you. I also want to tell you that not every country has the same policy. Some years ago, to be precise, in 2018, when Prime Minister Modi was visiting Africa, he actually gave a very interesting perspective, which was in a parliament of one of the African countries. He stood up and said that we are here, but we are different from others who have come here. The difference is we are here to listen to you, to ask you what are your requirements and your needs, and whatever we do will be in response to your priorities. And I think today, when I look especially at India's Africa relationship, the big change is that we are seen as a responsive partner, that we are seen not as a country which has come with its own agenda and imposes its own will and has its own interests. We work with other countries, we are very sensitive to their interests, and we, in a very honest and straightforward way, try to see in what way our experiences and goodwill can take the relationship forward. Now, how has the relationship progressed in the last few years? One, of course, we have seen a big increase in trade. That's very good. Some of you have contributed to it. Today, in fact, we are, I'm told, Namibia's 4th largest source of import. And we also have Indian companies here who are in the field of mining, in manufacturing, in services sector. To them, I would have this message that please, those who are in trading, please expand that. Those who are investing, please see how you can raise your footprint. And if there is anything which we can do as a government, as a ministry, as a High Commission, we are here to listen to you, and we would like to take that forward. The second, now within this, there can be some very special, I would say, skills or interests. And I was very happy to see that from the state that I represent, Gujarat, that you have a number of diamond cutting, processing companies here. So for them, I give a special thanks. I give a thanks on behalf of India, but I would say, because this is a very labor-intensive industry. When you work with people out here, you are actually teaching them, you are giving skills, you are making them stand up on their own feet. And I cannot, the best gift which anybody can give to anybody else is actually to give them the basis for employment and for that self-sufficiency. And if we can contribute in any way to that, I think we have really done something very good. So as I said, I value that greatly, and I माई नेक्स्ट ट्रिप, जब भी मैं गुजरात जाऊंगा, मैं अभी पिछले हफ्ते था वहाँ, मैं ज़रूर सूरत जाकर मैं लोगों को कहूँगा कि मैं नमीबिया भी गया था, वहाँ भी मुझे लोग मिले, सूरत के लोग मिले, एंड दे वर डूइंग वट एवर दे आर डूइंग सो वेल, दे आर डूइंग आउट देयर. Then I would like to actually congratulate the community, not because today you are all sitting and listening to me patiently. I am congratulating you for a very good reason. See, I told you that you all get the benefit of the country's image. But equally, the country gets the benefit of your image, of your activities, of your friendship. Because one thing I tell people, a country for people abroad, for individuals abroad, when they think of a country, they think of a person. They put some face to it. They put some relationship to it. They put some experience to it. So, anybody who's dealt with any of you, a student you have taught, somebody who's in office with you, somebody you have worked with, somebody who's your employee, you are India. And if that experience of theirs is positive, their image of India is positive. And that is why, from the time he has become Prime Minister, Narendra Modi has always continuously underlined what a debt we owe to the Indians who live abroad. To the Indians who live abroad, to the people of Indian origin who live abroad, because a big part of the image of India today is actually the 3 crore Indians and people of Indian origins who live abroad. They are the people who actually determine this image, who have shaped this image over many, many years. And I'm very glad to see that this number in Namibia is growing. Again, I want to say that a lot of the warmth and sentiment that we hear from the Namibian leadership is actually due to all of you. And I see that you have formed an India-Namibia Friendship Association and also an India-Namibia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And these are good things, because whenever a community forms organizations, has some basis for interacting with the country where it lives in, this is something which is very good. But I'm equally pleased that I was told by the High Commissioner that all our festivals are celebrated here, that there are Diwali celebrations, there are Dandiya nights, there are Satsang Sabhas, there are craft fairs. I'm told there are even fashion shows sometimes. In fact, the Deputy Minister who received me today, she was telling me in the car of the activities, and in fact she was telling me, the colors of India, if there's ways of more Indian culture, more Indian shops. I mean, clearly it is having an impact, because just as, the drive back from the airport to the city, I could see in a very natural way she was sharing that with me. So over the next few days, I will be, of course, meeting my counterpart, the Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister. I will be calling on His Excellency the President. We will be tomorrow morning holding the first meeting of the Joint Commission. And I mean, you will ask, Acha, what is this Joint Commission? So, as a sort of broad thing, it is like a sort of I would say intergovernmental baithak, where everybody who's involved sits on either side and you discuss everything. So I have today colleagues from the Trade Ministry. I have colleagues from Environment, because one area where Namibia has actually been a very good partner, in fact I would say our first partner is on a very interesting initiative to translocate cheetahs, and it's something which we feel it has now become a bigger initiative. There is something called the Big Cat Alliance, which is all the countries who have tigers, lions, cheetahs of various types. We are trying to get together to see how, by working together, we can actually increase the number of big cats across the world. So I have a colleague from environment. I have colleagues from the energy sector, because Namibia is becoming an energy producer. I have colleagues from the railway sector, because again, railways and roads, that India today is actually becoming a very major exporter. We have become a major player in oil and gas, but we are also becoming an exporter of railway projects, of road projects. I have myself seen, I was in Mozambique some weeks ago, and in Mozambique, in fact, we did a train ride in a train which had been supplied by Indian company. Similarly, in Latin America, I was visiting a road project in a very difficult place to make a road, with using some very innovative technology which Indian companies were doing. So my purpose in the next 2 days is really to sit down with our Namibian colleagues and to work with them and to see whether in different fields we can take the relationship forward. And my expectation of all of you, my request to all of you really is, in any way, if we can find ways of relating more closely, if we can find ways of contributing, it can be in different areas. In fact, today on my way here, I was told there's a cricket team from Karnataka which was playing a match with Namibia. So they were, I went through the stadium, but they were busy playing the match, so I just had a word with the coach to ask him that everything was okay. But these are all, each one of them is an example of how there is a connection between societies. But at the end of it all, what you should remember is these connections matter, because for countries like India, Namibia, I was yesterday in South Africa, we have to help each other, we have to stand by each other if we are to rise. We have a big challenge, a challenge of 200 years of history. 200 years where we had, our societies in many ways were deeply impacted, many aspects of it were destroyed. So how are we to rebuild our culture, our heritage, our civilization, our economies? And by doing this together, we can make a very big difference. And the symbol of doing it together is actually people like you, who come from one country but who are resident in another country, who are contributing here, but who also are a bridge to the country from which you come. So that's broadly what I wanted to say on the relationship, but I'd like to also share a little bit about what is happening in India. For anybody who's living abroad, I don't know what your sense is, because I know today it's very easy to follow what is happening in India. Everybody follows it on the phone. Sometimes if you have a chance, there may be some news on the TV. We are all busy watching YouTube. So knowing what is happening, getting information which is happening is not difficult. Knowing which is the right information and actually which way is heading is a little bit more difficult. So I want to tell you today that as someone who obviously has been a long time in the government, but who's today very deeply involved in many of the big issues which will decide India's future. When I look at the rest of the world, especially, today there is a confidence in India, there is really a capability in India, and there is a change in India which gives me a very different hope. But I feel that, when I look at many other countries I go to, they are very obsessed with their problems. It's natural. I think Indians are increasingly focused on the solutions. And that mindset change you can see in different ways. You saw it in COVID, that yes, when COVID came, We had a big, everybody had a big problem. And a country of 140 crores had the biggest problem. Okay. But very quickly, the thoughts of the country changed, saying, "Acha, ye aa gaya hai, now what do I do? How do I find a way out? How do I put in place systems? Dawai kya karu? Vaccine ke liye kya karu?" So, if you were to use even COVID as an example of comparison, there were countries which just threw up their hands. And these were not only developing countries. There are countries in the developed world who threw up their hands. That if you looked, there were countries who struggled with their medical health system, who had problems getting medicines, who sometimes had vaccines. They didn't have the system to put the vaccine into people. So if you look at that whole experience, to me it's like been an enormous test for India. And it is a test through which, at great sacrifice, because there's nobody anywhere in the world who's been unaffected, who's not lost somebody in some form. And we have come through that test very strongly. And not just come through that test. During that period, we put in place a lot of changes, lot of new programs, practices, technologies. We were the country who used digital best of all. That we were able during this period to create a system that today 2/3 of the country can be, the people who really need food, today they are assured, even during COVID, that the government has the ability to get food to them. That the government has the ability for 1/3 of the country, which again needs money, to put money into people's bank accounts. But people also know this is not only during crisis, that even for development today, if you look, some of you may have been here longer, some of you may have come here more recently. What were the big problems of the country? Big problems of the country were housing, electricity, water. These three actually have seen a huge change. That between Jal Jeevan Mission, which has given piped water, between Saubhagya, which has given the electricity connection, in the Awas Yojana, where actually today 15 crore people are living in houses which they did not have just a few years ago. So if you look at the basic, there was a time when certainly people of my generation felt, one day will come, we will also have house, everybody will have electricity. It was a characteristic we thought developed countries have this. Today we have shown that even developing countries are capable of dealing with all the basic demands of society in a very fair and non-discriminatory manner. For me, it is not only the delivery which has happened. It is a delivery which has happened without anybody asking you, who are you, what is your community, what is your language, where are you from. It has happened with extreme fairness. And to me, that is the sign of good governance. Good governance is when, one, there is no favoritism about who benefits, but good governance is also when there is no leakage. When 80% of what government spends doesn't go into people stealing it on the way. That it actually reaches 100% leaves, 100% reaches. And that is today what digital governance has done to the country. The second part of it is also infrastructure. Because again, it was any Indian who went out. Our common complaint, we came back to India, wahan road bahut acha tha, chalo ek din hamare yahan bhi ho jayega. Today I am actually hearing, I had some counterparts who came after a bit of a gap. So I asked them, acha, when were you last year? They said, 10 years ago. I said, okay, what is the difference? So first they said, everywhere we are seeing better roads, we are seeing construction. We are seeing in many places, depending on which city you went to. Today, if you look, airports were something which were there in the big cities and maybe second, third level cities. Today there are towns you don't even know the name of the town where there is an airport and where today flights are operating. So the point I'm making is the basics are changing, the infrastructure is changing, the ability to go through, meet challenges is changing. But most of all, today the mindset is changing. That I find actually a generation of people who are far more confident that we can sort out, we can deal with challenges. If you look at today what the skills upgradation has done, what education is doing. I mean, one of the big changes, we talk, usually people, when they talk about how much growth has been, they will always say, okay, GDP ka 7%, 8%, 9%. We have reduced it to a single number. Actually, unless that GDP is spread and spread fairly and spread inclusively, the GDP is not, no country prospers by having just a few people who prosper. The base has to prosper. And if the base has to prosper, your numbers have to be very different. The way of measuring has to be very different. You then have to say, okay, let me ask you, men-women ratio, has that changed? Has the number of universities and schools and colleges grown? Is your health indices changed? Has your nutrition level improved? Is your food availability become better? These are actually today ways of measuring whether a country is progressing or not. And this is really where I would say the big change today is taking place in India. Because we are a society where there will always be debates, but in any democratic society there will be people who will have different points of view. Some people will point in one direction, some people will point in another direction. Some will tell you there are a lot of problems, some will tell you for every problem there's a solution, some will say for every solution there's a problem. So this is the nature. But I want to share with you all this message, that it's not just that I'm coming out of India, I'm a minister in the government, these are policies for which we are working very hard. I have the ability today to compare what is happening in India with what is happening in the rest of the world. I also have the experience today to compare what is happening in India with what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. When I first joined government, Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister of India. So I can tell you how much comparison I can make. So the point I want you all to know, because I know, as I said today, this tragic rail accident, sometimes tragedies take you back home much more powerfully and emotionally. But I know all the time when people are abroad, your minds are always, one part of you is always thinking about what is happening in home. And that message I want to tell you that, it is today in many ways a much more capable India, a much more confident India. And that I think is recognized across the world. That if you read somewhere, in whichever medium of news you follow, if you read somewhere somebody has said something about India, somebody has said something about the Prime Minister, we were somewhere, one Prime Minister called him the boss, another one was, very, very respectful towards him. There is a reason why this happens. It happens because in their minds, they know that, nobody knows the challenges of governance better than another leader, because they have to deal with it themselves. So they are in the best position to actually judge each other. And when they actually express those sentiments, I think it is something which makes the country very proud, but it is also something which tells us today that, the country is moving in the right direction. We are very conscious that there are many challenges abroad, but I do want to finally leave with you that sentiment that with strong relationships, with very good, proud, contributing Indian communities abroad, with growth at home, we are very, clear that, the rise of India is unstoppable. that today we are the most populous country, we are the 5th largest economy, we will hopefully become 3rd very, very soon. But in a way, in a historical way, today India is taking its place in the world, and that is something which all Indians should be very proud of. So once again, really, I thank you all. I know it's a weekend, many of you have come, High Commissioner told me, long distances. So I'm really very grateful to you all today. But I just want to say you cannot start a visit better than starting with Indian community. So once again, thank you very much. Should I? If there is any suggestion, ideas, thoughts, concerns from any of you, it's always good for me to hear. So I think we have provided some mic or something for it. Huh? Okay. So I open up the floor in case anybody has any thoughts.
Thank you, sir. As the Honorable Minister agreed on taking few questions, I would request community member to first raise your hand and introduce yourself. Please be brief in your question. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. Good evening. गुड इवनिंग। मैं सुशील सारडा, एक बिजनेस एंटरप्रेन्योर, भारतीय हूँ, गर्व से भारतीय हूँ। मेरी प्रेजेंस अफ्रीका में पिछले 16-17 साल से है, इथियोपिया के अंदर, और यहाँ पे पिछले 2 साल से मेरी प्रेजेंस है। एक्सलेंसी, एज वेल नोन इन इंडिया, इंडियन गवर्नमेंट इज सपोर्टिंग Indian entrepreneurs and business houses to go global and mark India's global presence across the globe. Sir, I want to urge and request you to guide us as if there are any initiatives or policy measures from my government which can help us to compete with the other companies in project export segments. In that, sir, it's one thing I want to add. Can Exim Bank comes on board as it supports Indian exporters in India, of course, on merit basis? No issue.
एक तो बहुत खुशी हुई कि आप इतने सालों से अफ्रीका में आप बिज़नेस चला रहे हैं, और आप एक किस्म से उदाहरण है, जो मैं कहता हूं कि हमारे जो नागरिक जो बाहर जाकर अपना नाम बनाते हैं उनका योगदान होता है, और जो रिश्ते जो हैं वो उसको आगे करते हैं। तो आपका सवाल जो है कि भारत सरकार की ओर से आपको क्या सपोर्ट मिल सकता है और किस माध्यम से वो सपोर्ट मिल सकता है। देखिए, अभी जो है प्रधानमंत्री की कोशिश है कि भारत दुनिया में एक बड़ी इकोनॉमिक फोर्स बने, और उन्होंने कोविड के तुरंत दौरान हमारे एक्सपोर्टर्स को एक बहुत बड़ी टारगेट दी थी। ये टारगेट था उस समय 400 बिलियन का एक्सपोर्ट। और आप ये सोचिए कि कोविड के बाद जब दुनिया जो भी दुनिया के व्यापार की दुनिया में देश के एक्सपोर्ट कम हो रहे थे, यहाँ बल्कि प्रधानमंत्री कह रहे थे कि जो पहले होता था उसको छोड़ो, आप आगे बढ़ो। और मैं खुशी के साथ आपके साथ ये बताना चाहता हूँ कि हम लोग जो हैं वो टारगेट 400 का टारगेट, आई थिंक वी एंडेड 422। तो हमने 22 बिलियन से उससे ज़्यादा हम आगे बढ़ पाए। आजकल जो है, क्योंकि एक्सपोर्ट्स भारत में उसका जो इम्पैक्ट जो होता है वो रोजगारी पे होता है, तो देश की प्रगति उन्नति तो होती, पर हमारे यहाँ उसका जो रोजगारी का जो एक किस्म से एक ड्राइवर बन चुका है। तो ये एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन हमारे लिए, इसका तो महत्व मैं आपको बता ही नहीं सकता, इतना ज़्यादा है। उसमें जो है प्रोजेक्ट एक्सपोर्ट जिसका आप जिक्र कर रहे थे, प्रोजेक्ट एक्सपोर्ट्स का अपना एक महत्व है और आजकल जो है हम लोगों को काफ़ी सफलता मिली है प्रोजेक्ट एक्सपोर्ट्स में। ये जो उदाहरण जो मैं आपको दे रहा था मोजाम्बिक में कि ट्रेन रेलगाड़ी हम भारत के कंपनी ने बेचा था, वो एक प्रोजेक्ट एक्सपोर्ट था। मैं उसके बाद अगले हफ्ते मैं गयाना साउथ अमेरिका में था, वहाँ पहली बार भारत की एक कंपनी ने फेरी, एक जहाज जो छोटे छोटे द्वीपों में जाता है, लोगों को ले जाता है, तो पहली बार हमारा फेरी का एक्सपोर्ट हुआ वहाँ। आज अफ्रीका में देखें, लैटिन अमेरिका में देखें, रोड बिल्डिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स, सोलार प्रोजेक्ट्स, वाटर प्रोजेक्ट्स, मैं अगले हफ्ते मैं तंजानिया जा रहा हूँ, वहाँ हमारे बहुत बड़े वाटर प्रोजेक्ट्स, और ये बहुत सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स जो हैं वो क्रेडिट पर है, और ये क्रेडिट जैसे आपने कहा ये एग्जिम बैंक के माध्यम से होता है। अब ये मैं कहूँगा कि एक एग्जिम बैंक की भी अपनी क्वालिफिकेशन होती है, माने क्योंकि जब प्रोजेक्ट्स होते हैं तो छोटे कंपनियों को बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स देना जो है वो मुश्किल होता है। तो अगर इस पे आप जुड़ना चाहते हैं, मेरी आपसे ये अर्ज होगी कि आप ज़रूर इसका अध्ययन करें और जो हाई कमीशन जो है उनके साथ आप बैठ जाएं, क्योंकि हर हाई कमीशन में अब ये एक कंपलसरी हो चुका है कि एक अफसर होगा जिसकी जिम्मेदारी है कि जो भी बिजनेस का मामला होगा वो हाई कमीशन में किसी एक आदमी की जिम्मेदारी होगी, पर जिम्मेदारी इस पे हाई कमिश्नर की भी, कि वो आजकल के हाई कमिश्नर जो हैं वो बहुत बारीकी में देखते हैं, वो खुद जुड़ जाते हैं। उनकी सलाह मैं आप कहूँगा कि अगर उनकी सलाह आप लें, उनका तजुर्बा जो है उसका आपको उपयोग हो, तो मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि आपको कुछ ना कुछ रास्ता तो मिल ही जाए।
Good evening, Your Excellency. I'm Professor Sarla Krishnamurthy, working in the Namibia University of Science and Technology. I've been here for the past 20 years and I've contributed a lot to the Namibian nation. I've worked on two very important projects. One is the Endangered Languages Project, for which I got almost $4 million Namibian dollars. And I have been in touch with the San community, and I would like to just talk to you for a couple of minutes about that. The San, as you know, is the most endangered community of Namibia. And the San people have been in touch with me because they want Indian support. And if you go to the region, Chumkwe is the region where the San people are based. And there is plenty of water, but the unfortunate thing is, because they are only 0.01% of the population, they're not. They can grow tomatoes and vegetables, but they cannot upscale it to monetize it. So, is there any way we could look at, partnering with them, or whether the Indian government would be able to do something like, for instance, send tractors, those kinds of things? Is there some possibility of help for them?
Okay. I see two aspects to what you raised. One part of it is culture and one part of it is development. For development, I would say the answer is not that difficult. It is possible. What I would say is, if you can in a way sit with the High Commission and guide us and share with us, we can look at it, because in many countries we do what are called community projects. Okay, they are not very big projects because the small numbers of people you're talking, but I know places where it's a traditional food of a community. So we have helped them to expand that, or put a factory in place which would grow that, or traditional cloth of a so this whole idea of community-based projects to strengthen community resilience is something which is very common. In fact, it is not something we only do abroad. Even in India, as a member of parliament, I have a certain budget which is given to me by the government, and I look in a region, in a state, in this case, for example, Gujarat, There is a district called Narmada district. It's a aspirational district. There are a lot of tribal people there. It's of course got the tallest statue in the world. So all of you please come and visit it. Let me also say that. But I do a lot of projects there which give this community self-sufficiency issue. But I'm very interested in the first part of what you are saying, which is, one of the problems of the world today is because of globalization, because of 200 years of Western domination. Many countries, many societies, many communities, many people, we are losing our culture. People have somewhere, young people especially are made to believe there is something global that is fashionable. What is happening, what your father, mother, grandparents taught you, that is sort of somewhere against progress. Now, what it does is, over a certain period, it leads to loss of identity. Now, today in India, people are realizing it. I mean, if you see today, one of the interesting programs Prime Minister Modi started is something called Vocal for Local. His idea was, every one of us, wherever you live in your locality, there must be something which must be speciality of your locality. It can be a papad, it can be a cloth, it can be food, it could be anything. If you consciously start thinking, in my area there is something local, how can I support it? And we can all support it by being a consumer. So, in many cases, what it has done is, it has actually revived what were traditions and habits among people. In fact, he has another next level program. It's called One District, One Product. So, every district has in India करीब 750 जिले हैं. हर जिले की कुछ खासियत होती, कुछ प्रोडक्ट वहाँ बनता है जो उस डिस्ट्रिक्ट की पहचान. So if you patronize, I did something. I went to Kashi, Varanasi. Okay, people wear ties. Okay, you buy some nice brand name ties. I have nothing against brand name. I also buy it sometimes. It struck me. Suppose you take a fabric. Now there is great silk made in Varanasi. Okay, Tanchoy silk, which I am very happy because somebody told me it came from Gujarat originally. But the Tanchoy silk, I got somebody to make ties in Tanchoy silk. So today when I go out and give gifts to people, you can say you are giving a tie which is a gift of another habit of another culture. But I know if I give a tie, they will wear it. So I give a tie made in Tanchoy because that person is then appearing in their society, on their TV screens, on their newspaper, wearing my Tanchoy. So I would like to, I'm very interested in what you are saying. I would request High Commissioner to follow it up. And we have this Indian Council of Cultural Relations, which does cultural support programs. And certainly in Africa and Asia and Latin America, I think we have a moral obligation to, because we are a big country, we have survived much better than many other countries. Not everybody has our resilience. So it's our duty to stand by people who are under greater pressure. And I would like to do that.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. It is a privilege for me to actually stand in front of you and ask a question. First of all, I would like to really thank you, the pride that you have given us as NRIs. Today, the development the world is seeing, when I talk to ministers and people, the pride that they have about India, I think all credit goes to you and the present government. My question to you, I represent Mount Meru group of companies in Namibia, and we are around $1 billion turnover company. In Namibia, we are into the petroleum sector, And one of the pride moments that I would like to share that we run a program called Feed the Child program, in which in Africa we support around 125,000 kids with one-day meal every day. And our target by 2030 is to reach 1 million people, impacting 1 million people in Africa. My biggest concerning point, which actually now I want to bring to you, is that even though Indian people are doing great things everywhere, but like if we look at a long-term investment like petroleum, there is no protection like even starting from an investor permit. They may not give you for 10 years or 5 years, and investment in areas of petroleum, we need a long-term visibility. And I think it can come from your discussion with your counterparts who can actually support us so that our investments are well protected. So that is
Okay.
up to you.
Let me first of all respond. I think I will like to appreciate the work you are doing, because if you have a Feed the Child program, that's really a very, very noble social commitment that you have undertaken, and I wish you more strength. I hope you expand your program and make a good name for yourself, for your company, and for our country. Regarding your substantive issue, I want to be very clear. India supports Indian companies abroad. We should have no doubt about it. Now, by supporting Indian companies cannot mean I would favor company A or company B. It would mean as a general policy, For me, the fact that Indian companies can invest, can manufacture, can work, can sell is important, because finally the benefit comes to India. So, in most cases for investment, we deal with it through through an mutual investment, a bilateral investment treaty or a bilateral investment protection agreement. I will certainly look tomorrow morning to see. I will look today to see why we don't have that with Namibia, because from what you are saying, we don't. And I'd be very happy to raise it with the Namibian government, because ideally I would like to have it with all 195 countries of the world. Because today India is no longer the India that sits at home. This is an India which is going abroad. It's not only its people going abroad, and its products going abroad. Its capital is also going abroad. Its technology is going abroad. So it is our obligation to support people like you and your company, and we take that very seriously. So I'd be very happy to look at that, and definitely I would, after my discussions tomorrow, I'm meeting President Gengob the day after. I will make sure that you are briefed back, and if there are, I'd be very happy to take them. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Last one.
Us young and vibrant, but my name is Ankur Kathuria. I am the head of IT for Namibian Correctional Service, Committee for Ministry of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security. So, Your Excellency, I want some guidance and help, because we have embarked on a journey of digitizing the Namibian identity and Namibian documents. And on that verge, we have also recently introduced the e-services that allows the Namibians to apply for passports online, and for the visitors to apply for short-term employment permits, and very soon the holiday visa. So what can be done to assist us? Is there something that we can have a benchmarking? Because India has MOSIP. It's an open source framework designed by NIC, which helps in making your identity digital. And that will also help Namibia as the nation, because there are many far places in Namibia that do not have identity. So we really are looking at in next 2 years to have using digital technologies to innovate. So if the Indian government can assist us, it would be really great. Thank you.
You know, you raised three issues: passport, visas, and identity. Actually, each of these has undergone a very big change in India. If you see passports, many of you will remember a period when it took months to get a passport, sometimes years to get a passport. In fact, I tell my younger colleagues that when I joined government and foreign service, my whole locality was very happy, said, "Kam se kam mera passport ka kaam to kara lega ye." So there is a, because it was a kind of a rationed demand at that time. Today, actually, you can get literally, if you do Tatkal service, within a matter of days. And even non-Tatkal, in many cases, depending on where you live, it doesn't take very long. How did that happen? It actually happened because we digitized the whole passport system. So this whole idea, you go to Seva Kendra, you apply, आप अपना fingerprint दे दीजिए, biometric दे दीजिए, then depending on whether it's Tatkal or not, they look at your documents and they process you. And they, most important, they then keep you on a database. So if tomorrow you are in Namibia and you lost your passport, in the old days you would go to High Commissioner would say, "Please come back after 2 weeks, because I will now be writing to RPO from whichever city you are in. He will now tell me that, acha, this is a genuine case, and then only he will move on it." Today, actually, he will look at he will log in, we have a master base for passport issual. He will check if your details are right or not, and he will replace your passport. So there's been a passport revolution. Secondly, a visa revolution. Today, the bulk of the countries in the world, I don't have the exact number because it's constantly increasing, but I would say, I think more than 150 countries in the world, we do e-visas. Now, you have a very funny situation in Delhi. If you go as an Indian to any embassy, especially Western embassy, they will give you a visa appointment. They will give you first visa appointment after a few months. Okay? And then when you ask them for actually the visa, still more months. It had reached a stage where with some countries, and this is not a secret, I mean this is UK, Canada, people were actually getting appointments and promises for 2024, 2025. So you want to go to America tomorrow for business trip and you were looking at a few years from now. Whereas you actually have a situation for Indian visa where people are coming in with e-visas very smoothly. Look at the High Commissioner, he doesn't look at all under stress. So his systems are moving very quickly. His systems are moving very quickly because his systems are operating on a digital backbone which allows us to process it in that fashion. Now, what is at the heart of it? The heart of it is the third issue which you said, which is identity. Because when I said during COVID, we were able to give food to 80 crore people. We were able to put money in the bank account of 40 crore people. We were able to do Ujjwala for almost 10 crore people. We were able to do some other program, Awas Yojana. Why did that happen? Because the foundation is digital identity. Now, I would say we are today share that as a collaborative effort, companies who are involved in it. There are a lot of companies who have been stakeholders in this exercise. So I think you will find enough companies, because I was in, I'm trying to remember, Uganda, I think. Okay. I was in Uganda, and actually there is an Indian company which is working on some part of the identity, digital identity issue. So it's very, very possible. Again, we have a set of colleagues who deal with this. In the Unique Identification Authority. So I would actually point the High Commissioner in a certain direction, and please follow it up, because this is a great help that we can give to people. You know, that same smoothness of service that today you are getting in India. You know, other people get it. You know, I'll tell you, they will thank us from the bottom of their hearts. So once again, really, thank you all very much. Very good to see you. And please accept my good wishes. I hope you all do well, you keep prospering, and the next time when I come, I hope to see even more of you maybe in a bigger hall. So once again, really, thank you very much. Namaskar.